What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Triple H podcast. Happy Hour Hoops, one stop shop for everything NBA here. Dunny, Steve, and Amari today. Special guest, reoccurring guest, Amari. Jake is feeling a little under the weather, but he sends his best. He still put together the props and pick graphics that will be out on Twitter if you guys want to go take a look at our picks. But today we have a lot to talk about a month into the season. Steve, Amari, how are you guys feeling about a month in here? Get the monthly check, get anything off your chest. How are you guys feeling a month into the NBA season?
I'll let the guest start. How you doing, Amari?
I'm doing good. NBA, as always, it's drama, a lot of drama early on. It's not even Thanksgiving yet, and we already got a bunch of storylines. So I'm ready to get into it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing good, Dunny. Obviously, I wasn't here last week because I was lucky enough to be able to get blessed by opening the holy grail of basketball boxes, the Fleer 86, 87, Jordan, Bird, rookie chasing, just the best. That was awesome. And I wasn't here with the start of college basketball this past Monday. So now I got college basketball full slate every night. We just had a great couple games yesterday with Kentucky, Michigan State, and then Duke, Kansas. On top of that, we had some awesome NBA games. And it's just, my life now is just going to be basketball for the next 4 months. And I cannot wait. It's been a great start to the season so far. We've had a lot of surprise teams that I think we talked about earlier, a few weeks ago, Dunny, where we thought they were going to fall off, and some of them haven't fallen off yet. So the NBA, as Amari said, it's always going to be a lot of drama at the start of the year. We've had a lot more surprises at the start of this year than I kind of expected going into the season.
Yeah, man. I can't believe I dropped the ball there and didn't bring up the college basketball because, of course, we have that back too. Actually, yeah, and you hit the nail on the head too because I texted you a day before the Kansas-Duke matchup and said, who do you like to start the year? You said Kansas. They won outright yesterday, even though they're an underdog on the sports book. So you're starting out the college season hot. We got Yeah, we got NBA, like you said, and just full steam ahead NBA. Amari mentioned it. We already have some drama. That's what we're going to talk about today. Quite a few different storylines here. We're going to be talking about MVP, a few guys, a few big names talking out to the media, having some questionable quotes that we'll break down, some disgruntled NBA players, and then so many trade rumors I've come across on Twitter already for only a month into the season. Before we get into all that, just a few housekeeping things, some news. Desmond Bane out a couple weeks, which we already saw last night, was a big hit to the Memphis Grizzlies. They lost to the Pelicans because it appeared they couldn't score in the fourth quarter. Desmond Bane is among league leaders in fourth quarter points, so not really a surprise there. But that's it's only a couple weeks, but that's a decent hit for Memphis when it seemed like they were finding their stride to start the season.
Yeah, so, it's a huge hit. He has turned into, and I know Ja's the best player, but he's turned into the 1B offensive option.
Yeah.
We saw him take a jump last year, and I thought he was one of the most improved players. Obviously, Ja gave him the most improved player award. We saw him take that jump. He's taken another jump this year. Desmond Bane's averaging around 25 points a game. He's also been a playmaker for this team, averaging around 5 assists as well. He's done everything for this Memphis Grizzlies team, and it's just the worst timing, right? Because Jaren Jackson finally comes back. You finally have Jaren Jackson slowly getting fully healthy again, and now you lose Bane for a couple weeks. I want to see this Grizzly team at full health because I think the sky's the limit for them. But once again, we talk about some surprises this year. I've always loved Desmond Bane, Dunny. I've always been a huge Desmond Bane fan, but I didn't even expect him to take this type of jump again. So it's a really unfortunate injury for a guy who's having not just another, breakout season, but he's an all-star right now. He will be on the all-star team if he keeps up what he's doing, putting up the numbers he has. And not only doing that, he's doing it so efficiently, shooting the ball. It feels like every single night you look at the box score, Desmond Bane's like 5 of 9 from 3, 4 of 8 from 3. Like he's just making his shots, and he's helping the Grizzlies out so much. So to lose him for a few weeks, it's tough. But if there's anyone who can come back, it's going to be Desmond Bane.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything you just said. I mean, we know Ja won Most Improved Player last year. I actually thought Desmond Bain should have won it. I think since he didn't win it last year, if he keeps it up, I can predict that Desmond Bain should win it this year. He'll definitely, like you said, be an all-star this year, averaging about 25 points a game, 45% from three. Because it's so early in the season, I think they'll be okay. Like you said, it is unfortunate with Jaren Jackson, the way he's playing, and then you lose Desmond Bain for a couple weeks. But I think because it's not a super long-term injury, he'll come back and they'll be fine down the long haul. I have them, at least top 4 maybe. And if he had played up to his potential last year in the playoffs, I think they knock off the Warriors. So I think they'll be just fine this year.
Yeah, for sure. That's why, like the both of you guys alluded to, like tough for the individual because of how hot he started this season, but you don't really worry about this Grizzlies group. I mean, look at what they did last year without Ja. It was 20-3 or something in his absence, something crazy like that. They just continued to win games. So although they lost to the Pelicans last night, you expect them to continue winning and stay in that, same tier that they've been in the last couple of seasons now. And especially like you mentioned, Steve, they got Jaren Jackson back. It sucks that it was kind of a swap. Bain went out as soon as he came back into the lineup, but that's a team to watch. That's going to be an exciting group once they're at full strength. The only other really injury news, or at least big injury news, is it's kind of interesting. LeBron, as we know, he's been sidelined. Darvin Ham made a comment at the beginning of the week that it's probably best if they keep LeBron on the sideline for the remainder of this week. I don't know how long that's going to last. We saw the Nets get one of their 3 wins without LeBron against the Nets the other night. I mean, this is a team that we're probably exhausted talking about too, much like the Nets, who we're going to talk about in a little bit. But I mean, what do you guys think about this LeBron injury? I thought it was interesting they were able to grab some wins without him and him on the sideline. I don't think it's because he's not playing while they're grabbing wins. I do think guys like Westbrook are starting to play a little better. Yeah. Maybe they're getting a feel. I think Lonnie Walker had 25 points being a starter that game against the Nets. So maybe they're just figuring a few more things out. I know they have Dennis Schroeder and Thomas Bryant coming back into the lineup Friday, I believe was the report from Shams. So, yeah, what do you guys think about LeBron being sidelined and where the Lakers are at right now?
I mean, obviously the Lakers aren't in a great spot. You look at their record, you have them playing this year. They're in a tough spot, especially when they don't have their first-round pick. It's going to the Pelicans, who look great. But I think we just have to, it's LeBron's old. LeBron is getting old. He's finally showing age, and it's probably the Lakers are all right, we're probably not a great team this year. Let's rest him a little more. Let's not rush him back and ruin our season completely if we bring him back too early and he gets real serious injury. So keep him on the sideline and let other guys. What is the biggest complaint we've said about the Lakers all year long, Donnie? No one else besides Bron wanted to step up. We've seen with LeBron on the sideline, Westbrook has been playing some of his best games. Anthony Davis has had some monster games, and there have been some role players coming off the bench who have been playing a little bit better. Now, that's not saying, LeBron makes the team worse, because you see all the LeBron haters being like, the Lakers record with LeBron this year, Lakers record without LeBron. Of course it's a meme, but at the end of the day, LeBron James is one of the best basketball players in the league when he's on the court. But if you need to rest him a little bit because you don't think he's fully healthy and he is getting older, just rest him. This Lakers team is not win now. Maybe they make a few trades and try to get into that win now mentality, but the only way to get there right now is to have the players around LeBron just get confidence, just play better. And we've seen a little bit. We've seen a little more. Yeah, they're getting more opportunities, right? They're having more, being able to take more shots, maybe being able to run the offense a little more. That's been my biggest complaint with Westbrook on the Lakers is Westbrook's not a guy who just wants to stand around on the three-point arc, pass, and take open shots. He's someone who wants to facilitate the offense. He wants to run through the offense. He wants to be the one making his teammates take those open shots. And it's helped him a little bit with no LeBron there. I'm not saying LeBron's the reason Lakers have been bad. The Lakers have been a mess all year long because they don't have the depth. but don't rush LeBron back. Just try to see if you can have some guys. You can just at least get a core around him for this year, because the Lakers aren't really in a spot to rebuild, and they're also not playing well enough to be in win now. So in that weird, kind of situation where they're in the middle, where do we try to buy, make some big trades, get some players, or do we just sell it off completely? So I'm not surprised at all that they're not rushing LeBron back, because they got to figure out the identity of their team first.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you just said. At first, I thought it was weird it's kind of the best time for him to, take some time off or whatever, because it's the beginning of the season. But to your point, because of how old he is, if he's not fully healthy, if he's not 100%, then don't bring him back. And what I think that does is you get those extra opportunities for those bench players and those role players with him gone, so that when he comes back, not to say that LeBron is just another guy, but he's just an added piece, because even at 38, he shouldn't be your best player, but he still is your best player.
Oh, yeah.
So you insert him back into that lineup, that during those late game clutch opportunities, those young players, they have those live reps that they've had while he was gone, that they'll be able to go back to when he finally is back. And to your point, because they are so in between right now, they have the players where they shouldn't rebuild, but they're so bad that they should rebuild. Mm-hmm. So if they can stack those wins up towards the trade deadline and then make a move and see what we can do, maybe they could make a run towards the end of the season. But right now, sure, it is, I guess best for him to sit out so that those young guys can get those opportunities.
Yeah, they are in such a unique situation. And my first thought, actually, when Darvin Ham said, maybe we'll hold him for extended time, this might be the first season where we see legit load management from LeBron. It's weird because they aren't really in the best place to do that record-wise. It is still very early, though. But it did get me thinking when I saw that first reported. I'm like, wow, maybe we see a Kawhi Leonard type season for LeBron James, and literally just keep this guy fresh as possible. So in the off chance that you do find yourself atop the West, or at least in a playoff picture towards the end of the year, you have a fresh LeBron James. So, yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about the Lakers a little more towards the end of the show with these trade rumors, because they're apparently seeking everyone in trades always. So
always.
But we know that. Let's get into the
people that they should get in a trade.
Yeah. Right.
They keep shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah, it's never realistic rumors, but that's the Los Angeles Lakers for you. Let's get into the MVP race, guys. In the doc, I am doing some victory lapping about my Celtics here. Jason Tatum atop the MVP race yesterday. He was kind of sitting there alone, but me and Steve were talking before we jumped on. Luka, Giannis, and for me, I think that's going to be the three. Or at least it seems that way. It will be those three guys all year long.
Not a bad group right there.
The way they're playing, and when you compare numbers, when they show graphics on the score bugs in the middle of games and they do scoring leaders, the numbers they show and the stats we're looking at, it's clear, at least right now, Giannis, Luka, and Tatum are in a league of their own. But yeah, it's incredible. I think Giannis and Tatum both have the records on their side, both sitting on top of the East. The Mavericks have started the season better than I thought they might have. The team looks a little better than maybe I was giving them credit for coming in. And yeah, Steve, I'll let you talk about your guy Luka here in a sec, but Tatum averaging 32 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, 4 assists per game, a steal and a block in there. I mean, he's doing it on both ends. Luka, we should, like you have here, don't sleep on this guy, right? It's Luka Doncic. He's hitting buzzer beaters. He's silencing the crowd. He's doing his thing. Did you guys see that, by the way? He silenced the Mavericks crowd last night.
Crowd. And then in the post-game press conference, he goes, I wanted to celebrate. He's like, I didn't know what to do. He's like, I didn't even realize it. And it was so funny, too, because he was just caught up in the moment there. He wasn't even expected to shoot that ball. I think it was supposed to be Dinwiddie or whatnot. It was a bad pass. It was just kind of tipped. Shot clock's expiring. He's just behind him. He just chucks it up. Next thing you know, it's a 1-point to a 4-point game. Of course, Luka hits that. Luka, Magic, and Dallas. He owns the Clippers. If you talk about a player that owns a team they play against, Luka Doncic owns the Clippers. And once again, I sound like a broken record, Dunny, but he's doing this with limited help. once again on the Mavericks. And it's one of those, if you want to win the MVP, and this is nothing against Tatum at all, but Tatum has such a good team around him right now.
Oh, yeah.
Luka's doing this with, Christian Wood coming off the bench, who's been playing all right, but an inconsistent Reggie Bullock, an inconsistent Dorian Finney-Smith. And then you have Giannis on the other side, who the Bucks started off undefeated. They've been unbelievable this year. Drew Holiday's missed some games. Chris Middleton hasn't played this year. Brooke Lopez has probably been their second best offensive option. And then you have Javon Carter, who has emerged. And you just look at what Giannis and Luka are doing. And I can even say Tatum too, even though the Celtics have been a very good team this year, but they're just putting these teams on their back to the point where it's like even if they're not scoring 35 a night or whatnot, or even if they go through like an entire quarter where they only take 2 shots, they're the ones setting up their teammates. And that's something that we talked about a little bit last year, Dunny, that we saw Tatum do in the playoffs. And I'm like, I want to see him do it more this year. And he has. He has turned into that tier 1A type of superstar talent in the NBA now, where if you asked me about a month ago, I think I saw this online Twitter where it was like starting a franchise tomorrow, rank these 5. And it was Luka Doncic, Giannis, you had Ja Morant, Jason Tatum, and Nikola Jokic were the 5. And it's crazy to me that the back-to-back MVP is probably number 5 on that list. And I also think it's kind of crazy that Tatum, who I think 2 years ago or even last year at some point was not in people's top 10 players in the league, you could make an argument Tatum's at least 2 on that list. He could be 3 or 2. I think you can, Giannis, I think you have to put it number 1. And then I think you can make the argument, Luka or Tatum, if you're starting a team tomorrow, who would you rather have? Because people also forget Tatum's, 24 years old? He's still a baby. Yeah. So it's been unbelievable what he's done. Well-deserved, the jump he had. I think he's been the one who's shortened his MVP odds the most out of anyone in the NBA. I think he started at 15, 14-1 at the start of the year. Now he's at basically 4-1. And I know, Donnie, you're not going to want to say, oh, it's Celtics bias. It's no longer Celtics bias. He is one of the best superstars in the NBA, and he deserves to be in the group with the names of those guys. And Jason Tatum has not just been a pure scorer, but he's just turned into an all-around superstar on both ends of the court. And I think this is going to be one of the more exciting MVP races, just hoping all 3 guys can stay healthy, because I think you're right, Dunny. I think this is going to be the 3 we see the remainder of the year.
Yeah. Amari, what do you think? You think we're forgetting someone here, or is this the 3 guys you'll probably be looking at all season long? We know it's early, but
yeah, I think these will be the 3. What I would like to see is for Luka and his team to have a better record necessarily. I know it's not all his fault. Like Steve was saying, he is on limited help. And to me, that's where I go back and forth with the definition of what an MVP is, because Luka is clearly more valuable to Dallas than the other players are. And it's mostly because of him where they're at. But for me, I like to see Jason Tatum as a front runner because, to me, for a guy that a lot of people say disappeared in the finals, he looks hungrier. He looks like he took another step. Surprisingly, he's already been good. Looks like he took another step from last season and looks like he wants to get back to the finals and win it. I mean, to me, I think I would like to see him shoot at a higher clip than he is. It's about 49 right now. In comparison, like Luka's closer to 50, but he's shooting a way better 3-point percentage than Luka is right now and taking less shots. I could be wrong on that part. But yeah, to me, it's Jason Tatum right now because sitting at 11-3, first place in the East. Like I said, Dallas is about 8-5. They're kind of in the middle. But to me, it's Jason Tatum because of where he's at. I think he's the clear front runner on that team. And they're clearly right now, record-wise, the best in the East. And I don't think you can take that away from them. Even though they're only like a half game over Giannis right now, he's playing well too, don't get me wrong. But I do think there's a little bit of like fatigue, if you will, because Giannis has already won it twice. So, to me, it's Jason Tatum right now.
Yeah. And Steve, I wanted to just touch on something you brought up because I was going to bring this up in this conversation. It doesn't really have to do with the MVP award necessarily, but it's crazy that we're only, well, I guess, there's a discrepancy between how many games these teams have played, but the Celtics in particular have played 14 games here, right? We're only 14 games into this season, And at the end of last year, so not even a year ago, less than a year ago, at the end of last season, people weren't ready to say Tatum's better than Jimmy Butler. Tatum's better than Paul George. He clears those guys now, in my opinion.
Easy.
Yeah.
No, and I know with you being a Celtics fan, it's sometimes in the back of your head, it's like, oh, this might be a little biased. It's no longer biased to me. And I also would put Tatum over Booker without question at this point, too.
Yes, that's another name.
I was going to say, I'm glad you just brought that up because I remember a previous show that I was on, we talked about Devin Booker and whether or not we thought Jason Tatum was better than Devin Booker, whatever the case may be. To Dunny's point, I think he clears Devin Booker right now, too. He's clearly one of the very best players in the league right now, and he'll continue to get better at that because, like we say, he's only 24 years old, so he's got a lot of time ahead of him, too.
Yeah, I think he has proven, and I think now he's shown, carried over from his run in the playoffs and the second half of last year to the start of this year. He's proven he can do everything on the basketball court, right? He can defend. He can have on-ball defense. He can create his own shot. He can be the one who will get double covered and will make the ridiculous cross-court pass to a wide-open teammate. He can be a monster on the board some nights. He's an all-around superstar. He can do everything. And when you look at someone like that, you have to put him up there with the other names. And I would go as far to say right now, I would put him above Ja Morant. I would put Tatum. Yes. I think the only guys right now I would have over Tatum in terms, I think it's just if I had to rank, someone's rank the players you'd want for this year. I think you have to put Giannis and Luka above him. I would say LeBron James and Kevin Durant just because when they're on the court, it's LeBron James and Kevin Durant. They've been the best basketball players in the world for the past 10 years. And then probably Steph Curry. And after that, I think Tatum's 6. I don't see, maybe Joel Embiid, you can make the argument, right? I think that's a fair argument you could make. You could make the argument with Jokic because he's won 2 MVPs. But if you put a gun to my head right now and you said, Steve, who would you rather have for the rest of this year? Full healthy, right? Jason Tatum or Nikola Jokic? I'm taking Jason Tatum. I am. I just think he's a better overall player.
Yeah, he's eliminated the question of whether or not he's a top 10 player from last season.
Yeah, absolutely.
With him being a front runner for MVP at the top of the East right now, there's no question. There's a small, very limited amount of names that you can easily put above him, and then it gets a little bit murky. But no question that he's top 10, arguably top 5 right now.
Yeah, I
may swap like Steph Curry or so, but I get why you would put him in there. But undoubtedly top 10 for sure.
Yeah, I think you can make the argument for top 5, and I wouldn't argue with you. If the only one I would say I don't think it is probably Giannis right now. If you want to say, Tatum's playing better than Kevin Durant, I'm like, okay, the Nets have not been good. The Celtics have been a lot better. You can make that argument. You want to say Tatum's been playing better than LeBron this year? You can make that argument. Tatum better than Luka? He's shooting better than Luka. Luka's putting up the numbers, but he's shooting 29% from 3. He's turning over the ball. Tatum's a much more polished defender. So I think you can make the argument up to basically every player in the NBA besides maybe Giannis right now for Tatum. And from a year ago to now, Tatum's come such a long way to where I think Celtics fans kind of saw this because they watch him every game, right? And they saw the type of potential he had. He's playing to that potential now where I think even the most anti-Tatum haters are finally like, okay, he's a superstar. And he's more than that. He is a arguably top 5 player, top 5 talent in the NBA.
Yeah, and just the last thing here on Tatum to kind of put a bow on this. Amari, you kind of alluded to this. It's the mentality too. He had a sour taste in his mouth from the finals last year. He keeps bringing that up, and I watch every Celtics game, so it's kind of stuff that I'm seeing that people listening or you guys might not see. But he literally is just so much more poised on the court too. He's not smiling nearly as much, which not saying you can't smile, but he is in go mode even in September, October, Kobe. November games.
No smiles, all buckets.
Right. And he's not arguing with officials as much. He's not turning the ball over as much. These are the things that make you an MVP. He's there. These 3 guys, it's going to be – if these are the 3 guys all season long, it's going to be such a fun MVP race.
Yes.
I kind of hope there's a few names, that we can throw here and there throughout the season.
Amari's on the show. I have to bring this up to Amari. Donovan Mitchell is
He'll
playing.
be there.
He's playing like an MVP. I'm looking at the odds right now. He's seventh shortest odds, and he's in the group after Giannis, Luka, Tatum, Embiid, Curry, John Morant, Donovan Mitchell. I mean, you have to be. Obviously, you're the Cavs fan, Amar. You have to be hyped with this. Maybe even a little bit surprised because I thought he's a good player. I didn't expect him to play like this. But Donovan Mitchell's another one who, the start of this year, has just thrown his name in the group of the guys we used to compare him to. He might be better then. Maybe he had to get out of Utah. Maybe he had to escape Gobert a little bit because we're seeing Donovan Mitchell on a good, well-rounded Cavs team, and he's blowing my mind too. I mean, both these guys from the same class, Tatum and Mitchell, I think have been two of the most impressive players in the entire league this year.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I have no rebuttal. I completely, with everything you're saying, averaging over 30, shooting about 52, 53% from the field. He's kind of been out with a little bit of injury, but to your point, I mean, it kind of has been a surprise a little bit, to be honest, because not that he hasn't, been good in before, but to take that extra step that he's doing right now on what is arguably a better team. Like you said, it is more well-rounded. It's not as top-heavy as the Jazz were when he was there. So I think that also helps. He has a true point guard that can facilitate the ball, but also score at the same time. I mean, what did he just score? Like 50-something
51
the other day?
27 in the fourth or something? Unreal.
Yeah. So, no, I mean, it has been a surprise, a pleasant surprise, I'll add. But it has been a bit of a surprise with him being, as good as he's been. And but with a little bit of the injuries, they've kind of fallen off. They've lost like 3 in a row a little bit. So, it's okay. But definitely a pleasant surprise.
You have to be excited as a Cavs fan, though, to see how that team, when they're playing together at full health, that starting five can go.
He makes it look effortless. Watching the games, all games, it makes it look effortless. I mean, he's making ridiculous shots. Every time he shoots the ball, you have that confidence that it's going in. You don't question anything that he's doing. And it's become clear he's been a clear leader on this team, both on the court and off the court as well. I mean, all he wants to do is just fit in, and he's doing exactly that team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was our MVP talk for the day, guys. Let's get into a team we never want to talk about, but we always have to.
Always do.
They're in the news. It's mostly quotes that we got from players today and the organization, the Nets, and all the question marks surrounding that team. Let's start by the Shams report we got this morning. The Nets are growing frustrated with Ben Simmons. Surprise!
Shocking.
Yeah, he apparently they're questioning his drive to play basketball, and then they're not really pleased what he's doing when he is on the court. So I think most Nets fans probably feel the same way. I think the Ben Simmons experience has been nothing short of bad.
I would call it a failure.
Yeah,
I'd call it a failure.
I was going to say, is it too early to call it a failure?
I mean, do we really think he's going to turn it around to the point where I don't know.
I mean, he's not going to start magically shooting shots even from range. But I mean, with how early it is, and it's from last season, him not playing after the trade deadline. I think he had surgery in the off season. So I mean, for me, I'm a patient person, so I'd say give it just a little bit more time, especially with Kyrie being out, before you can say, okay, the failure or this has succeeded or whatever. But really quick before you keep going, I think we did who won the Brooklyn Philadelphia trade, and clearly I was wrong. It was clearly Philadelphia.
Yeah,
I just wanted to throw that out there.
I think I was on your side too, though, Amari. I think I was on the Brooklyn side too, and I think Philly got that one.
Hindsight's 2020, right?
Right.
But yeah, I can agree with that too. Like, it is early to call it an entire failure. I just think, as far as
not going great.
Yeah, as far as expectations of this deal, I think you could say it's a failure from that standpoint. But like, we don't know. Like, Ben Simmons could easily be like an all-star for the Nets next year or something. We don't know. We know the talent's there. It's just where is his head at? Is the talent still there? Like, was this injury, this surgery? Could it be a career changer for him? I'm not saying he's going to be out of the league, but I mean, he's coming off the bench right now and he's supposedly fully healthy. So it's like, and is that a mental thing? Does he prefer coming off the bench, or is he now upset with his teammate Kevin Durant who his quote was also in the news today because he basically just rattled off the starting lineup, which includes him, and said, what do you guys expect with this group? And he did say, like, no disrespect to them, but that's basically saying no disrespect, but also fuck you guys.
Yeah.
Because he said no disrespect as he was disrespecting his teammates, saying basically, what do you expect from me, Royce O'Neal, Nick Claxton and company? Like, listen to the names I'm listing off, guys. I'm Kevin Durant, yes, but you can't expect to just win because I'm on the floor, is basically the gist of what KD was saying, which in some way it's warranted, but he also at the same time asked for all this. I mean, we're just back at square one with the Nets being an absolute mess, and really no one inside the organization or outside have any idea what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think with KD, I think I can see kind of both sides of KD's frustration and KD just being KD, where Kevin Durant this year, all credit goes to him. He's played all 15 games for the Brooklyn Nets. As bad as they've been, he's played all 15 games. He has been balling out for them. I think he's averaging 36 and 6. He's shooting well from the field. He's been playing pretty good defense this year. He's been the only one on the team who seems to wants to play defense. And he's been great. And I think Kevin Durant, it's not necessarily him calling out his teammates. I think he's just frustrated because Kyrie Irving's not on the court. He's getting a 50% effort from Ben Simmons. And that was where he left, where everything was handed to him in Golden State, where it was the perfect situation for a guy like Kevin Durant. And I think partly the reason he left is because of everyone hating on him for going to Golden State in the first place. And he's like, all right, I want to prove that I'm a superstar, can win. It's not like I'm only can win on this team. I can win elsewhere. And he figured, all right, I'll team up with a guy, Kyrie Irving, who's kind of in the same boat with me, where he wants to kind of prove his legacy, and we'll, build a team in Brooklyn, we'll win together. And Kyrie has never really been 100% in with this Brooklyn Nets team. And we all know the off the court issue with Kyrie as well. It feels like the past 3 years, it's been just a different off court issue with Kyrie that has popped up and it's just gotten worse and worse and worse as the years go on. And it's just built up the frustration to Kevin Durant, where I think he wants out of Brooklyn, which is no shock to anyone. And it's not him necessarily shitting on his teammates or calling them out, but it's basically a cry for help, where he's like, listen, I'm putting in 110% effort right now. I messed up coming here. I know it was my mistake. I messed up, but he needs to get out of there, or something needs to change, because he's like, I'm wasting an unbelievable season, some of my last best years on the court. I'm wasting them with this team because no one else wants to care about this Brooklyn Nets basketball team, or the stars, the other stars on this team don't care about basketball. They don't care about me. And we know Kevin Durant, he's a petty guy. Kevin Durant expresses his feelings, whether it's in post-game press conferences, through his burner accounts, whatever it is. Kevin Durant is not afraid to speak his mind. And I think that's basically what it was. It's not him saying Nick Claxton's a bad player, doesn't deserve to be on the court, or he hates Royce O'Neal. It's just like, listen, I'm giving it my all. It was a mistake to come here, essentially. And it's basically, I think, a cry for help, where he's like, something needs to change, or I need to get out of Brooklyn. And from that side of it, I agree with Kevin Durant, because I would be frustrated too if I'm putting up those type of numbers, if I'm the one who's been working back from injuries to become a superstar, one of the best players in the NBA again, and no one else on my team is kind of following suit. But on the other side of it, for KD, it's like, listen, man, like, you should have expected this. Like, what are we doing here? Like, you can't just keep running away from your problems every year. And like, you had it good in Golden State. Yes, people were hating on you. Yes, they were like, oh, he left OKC to go to Golden State. He's not a true champion. He let it get in his head, and it's like, it's just kind of both sides with Kevin Durant, right? I want to root for the guy. I want to be like, all right, he is playing like one of the best players in the NBA right now. There's no doubt about that. And I think he's finally all in on basketball. Again, I think he never wasn't all in on basketball. I just think it was a few injuries and all the offseason stuff that set him back. But at the same time, too, it's like, man, Kevin Durant, you should have seen this coming. Like, you really should have. And it's not the right way to go about it, just kind of going in a post-game press conference and basically throwing a tantrum is what you're doing when you're calling out your teammates. Because at the end of the day, that's who you're playing on the court with. Does not matter. It's not their fault. They're not the ones who made it so Kyrie's not playing or Ben Simmons isn't trying. You have to deal with what you got, and you got to overcome adversity. And that's something Kevin Durant has always struggled with in his career. He just doesn't want to overcome adversity. He wants to run from it. He wants the easy way out. And I love Kevin Durant. I've always rooted for that guy, but it's hard to keep defending him with this type of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, was he wrong with anything that he said?
No, he wasn't.
But you can't call out your teammates. You can't say no offense to them, but also this is where everything is going wrong. And in that same vein, early in the season, he wanted his trade, which completely understandable, right? But when you say it's either me or the coach, me or the GM, and then you rescind that trade request, and then you're back with the team, you have to play under that coach and that GM. This is what you get. This is the bed that you now have to lie in that you made, because you're a part of the problem with the Nets. You wanted to be here with Kyrie. If you're his friend, you already know what the problem is, because he did it in Cleveland. He did it in Boston. I would love to re-sign, if you guys would have me, to turn around and go right to Brooklyn. So this is what you should have known you were getting yourself into when you signed up with the Nets. And sure, the Ben Simmons thing isn't working out right now. I say it's a little bit early to say it's a complete failure, but so far it's not a good track record. It's not going as good as they thought it is. And to me, it reminds me of when LeBron was in Cleveland the second time around, where he said, listen, we're top heavy as shit. And he wasn't wrong in saying that. But at the same time, what it comes off as is not a good thing, because you have to go on the court and play with these guys and try to play as a team and win games. Right. And that's the one thing that you're not doing right now, is winning games. And it's only adding to the pressure and the frustration that you're having in Brooklyn, when at the beginning of the year, you didn't even want to be here. So now what does that say to your teammates? Is that just another thing that they now have to worry about? That maybe you're going to get traded or have another trade request on top of Kyrie not being here? Then if he's gone and Kyrie's gone, now you're stuck with Ben Simmons scoring 2, 3, and 2 a game. That's going to get you nowhere. So to me, we all get where KD is coming from, but I don't think you can say these things publicly, even if they already know it. It's just the way that it comes off. But I mean, this is what the Nets have to deal with. I mean, even the interim coach, I mean, he's not an interim, but his deal only goes through next season. Mm-hmm. So there's no real future with this team. We don't know what this team is going to look like, hell, even at the end of this season. So, I mean, it's all just a big shit show right now, and we just kind of have to wait it out. And like you said, we don't love talking about them, but we kind of have to in the same vein, because every other day they're giving us something new to talk about. Even if it's the same thing, it's just something new. And, well, what's going to happen in Brooklyn today? We don't know. So we just kind of have to wait it out.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say here, he basically doubled down too, because another quote came out, and I honestly didn't watch. I don't know if all these quotes came from the press conference or if they were separate, but there was also a quote where he said the reason he requested the trade was because he didn't want to get all the blame basically when this inevitable shitstorm hit. And so, like, he knew, just like everybody else, that it was going the wrong direction. It was going sideways. It was going south, whatever you want to call it. And he didn't want to get the blame for it, which I get. But at the same time, like, dude, people, like, the numbers will speak for themselves. It's the same reason no one's blaming you right now. You're the golden child of it. And you'd be even more appreciated if you just didn't say any of this stuff. Because, and I'm not saying he shouldn't speak his mind. Like, this isn't like a shut up or dribble thing by any means. But it's like, you basically created this situation. You wanted to play with Kyrie. You doubled down and said you're cool with Ben being there. You guys are going to be a legit super team, which I think they could be. But for whatever reason, they just cannot figure it out. They didn't like the coach. Him and Kyrie have like their own problem. They act like they're best friends, but they don't seem to like each other on the court. It's just a jumbled mess of Brooklyn Nets, and this is what it's been. And yeah, so now he's saying, you know, he kind of saw this coming where he's going to get the blame, but I think he thinks that in his head. I don't see that as the case. I mean, we just talked about how well he's playing. He hasn't missed a game. Like, you can't blame Kevin Durant for them losing. He doesn't have any help, and he does have help. They're literally just not playing. So here we are in Brooklyn. I'm sure we'll be talking about them again sometime very soon.
No, really?
But let's before we wrap up with a few trades, I do want to talk about Klay Thompson quickly before we get to the trade talk, and then then we'll end the show. But Klay speaks out as well. He thinks that he doesn't get recognized enough or gets too much disrespect for his play as of late because of the injuries that he had to overcome to get back to this point, to win another championship, to get back to the finals, just to get back onto the court. And he said this a couple times this year. I mean, he had the back and forth with Ronnie 2K about his 3-point rating. You know, he was pissed last year about the top 75 stuff. And we know Klay's, you know, you talked about Kevin Durant, Steve, being a petty guy. Klay's the same way. So no surprise that either of these guys have comments like this. I wanted to get your guys' opinion on this, though, because, and again, I don't check me if my bias is getting in the way here, because I'm still a little sour about the finals and the championship last year. So maybe this is just me disliking Klay Thompson from that, but I feel like people did give him his flowers last year. I feel like every finals game I watched, the broadcasters said how incredible it was that he was able to overcome and get back to this point. And his shooting splits are pretty awful for one of the greatest shooters of all time this season.
Oh, yeah.
He's only averaging under 15 points a game. I just wanted to get your guys' opinion on this. I get it, and if that's the way you feel and you feel like you are being disrespected, go ahead and say it. But I just don't really think that's the case, and his numbers really aren't backing up him playing well.
I think it's a little bit of a combination of, I think he knows he's struggling, but he doesn't really want to admit it. And I think Klay's that type of person too. He's never going to admit that, but he is struggling. He's shooting 35% from the field, 33% from three, and I think 72% for free throws, which are all like career lows for Klay Thompson. And what was the thing we knew about Klay Thompson before the injuries? He's just a walking bucket. He didn't have to do anything else. He would just shoot a shot, and there would be just some games where he would be like, oh, Klay Thompson went 8 of 10 from three this game. And that was just kind of the regular. And we really haven't seen a blow-up Klay Thompson game like that in a while. And I think the combination of the frustration comes from Klay Thompson knowing he's not playing that well. And to your point, Dunny, I know commentators and analysts were giving like Thompson his flowers, but the majority of NBA fans, the ones where you hear all the noise from, was like, Jordan Poole's better, Jordan Poole's better, Jordan Poole's better. That's all he heard. And Jordan Poole, who, played very, very good last year, is struggling this year too, but no one really wants to bring it up because Jordan Poole's the next one to come in. He's the flashy new splash bro coming off the bench, making these crazy highlight reel type plays, and everyone is like, oh, Klay's the old guy, get him out of there. He's just the old shooter now. He's not the same player. And I think it's Klay Thompson trying to say like, hey, I still have something left in the tank. I'm still a starter here, but his numbers aren't backing it up. And I think that's what adds to the frustration. And when you have a guy like that who's willing to speak his mind, he's never going to directly come out and say, oh, I'm better than Jordan Poole or attack Jordan Poole, but he's basically going to be like, hey guys, like, I'm still Klay Thompson, like, I'm still one of the greatest shooters of all time, which he is accurate with that. He's just not playing like that anymore. And I'm not going to come on here and be like Klay Thompson's a bad shooter now, but he had so many injuries to overcome. This poor guy, it was like 3 straight years, but he finally overcame one injury. Then another one popped up, and it was just major injury after major injury. And regardless, Klay, of how good of a player you think you are, it's just tough to get back to that level again. And we kind of saw Steph Curry get back to a level or even better than he has been after his injuries, and Klay just can't do it. I just think it adds to the frustration a little bit. And I think that's really why he's being vocal and speaking his mind about this. Because I don't think Klay Thompson's really ever going to be the player that he was pre-injuries. I think he could still be a great role player for the Warriors, which he kind of was in the playoffs a little bit. But I think Klay Thompson has to kind of, come to the realization that maybe he will never get to be that guy again. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because the Warriors are a great team. They have great players around him. Wiggins has taken another step. I know Poole's struggling, but he's got a ton of potential. I just think Klay just feels like he has so much pressure on himself to be the Klay Thompson of old, and that may just not be a reality anymore.
Yeah, at the risk of sounding like a biased Cavs fan for previous battles, but Klay Thompson, to me, he comes off sounding very not like a sore loser because he literally just won his 4th championship, but it's just the constant whining. And when,
Yeah.
yes, Clay, I know that you came off of 2 very hard injuries and you missed a lot of time, but when you're publicly feuding with Ronnie 2K of all people over your 3-point rating in a video game, to me, it just sounds very, very childish. Like, what are you doing? And to Steve's point, yes, you're getting older. You're not the player that you once were. Your shooting splits are 35 and 33%, and you're shooting 72% from free throw line. In comparison, Jordan Poole, literally all his numbers are better than yours. And yes, I get maybe you don't want to accept that. Klay Thompson's win shares is minus 0.3 right now, and Jordan Poole's is a full win better than that. So I get you may not want to come to that conclusion, but when you're literally getting older and your numbers show it, especially last season in the playoffs, to me, it just sounds just, I don't want to say shut up and dribble because that's not where I'm coming from. But what are you doing? Like, people are calling you out on the things that they're seeing. It's all in the numbers. It's not that we don't believe in you. We've all given you your flowers. Even as a person that's not a Warriors fan, I miss seeing Klay Thompson out there, and I was happy when he finally came back because of the injuries that he had to overcome. But when you come back and you have these career low numbers that you've been putting up since you come back, it's all fair game because we're going off of what we see and the numbers that you're putting out on the floor. So it's not that we're all hating on you, Klay. We're giving you your props. You're going to be a Hall of Famer. You're at worst the 3rd best shooter of all time behind one of your teammate. But I mean, to me, I have no words. It's just literally baffling to me when it's not like you're putting up Jason Tatum numbers and we're all shitting on you. Like,
that's
it's all
the
in
thing,
the numbers. Like, it's all fair game when you put out the numbers that you've been putting out, and it's all literally career lows right now.
And that's the thing. Like his numbers just aren't backing it up. And to your point, Amari, with Jordan Poole, who even is struggling a little bit this year, Klay Thompson was out last game against the Kings. He's out with an injury. Jordan Poole started 36 points, 60% from the field. They won by 40. It's just like, Klay just has to accept that maybe Poole's just a better player than him now at this point in his career.
And the team itself isn't performing as well,
which
as
adds to the frustration.
Right.
Yes.
I don't know what your last game was, but when you're winless on the road and you're the reigning champions, that's gonna ring a level of concern from anybody, no matter who's playing right now. So I mean, and you come out and you're part of that team that's winless on the road, and you're putting up the numbers that you're putting up. That's all fair game to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Steve Kerr literally said today that they're aware that this is probably the end of their ride, whether it's at the end of this season or the end of next year. He's like, we're all aware it's coming soon, and it might be better if Klay just starts thinking like that a little bit too and just kind of works on himself. Like, shooting is how you stay around in this league, and I'm not trying to criticize him any more than he thinks he's already getting right now, but his injuries shouldn't, in theory, affect his jump shot all that much. Like, shooting 35%, shooting 35% from the field, not 3-point. He is shooting 35. Like, that is awful.
It's 72 from a spot where you're standing still.
Yeah, like
a spot he usually never struggles at. Never struggles from the line.
And like you guys said, it'd be one thing if he was putting up, like, no one expects to put up the prime Klay numbers, but it's like, dude, you're shooting the ball so poorly, and both of your injuries were lower leg injuries. It's like, I get it. It's hard to come back for those things. People did give you your flowers when you came back, but you've been back for nearly a year now. All anyone's saying is you'd expect your shooting splits to be better is essentially the criticism you're getting. I think it's a little out of pocket, this, the whining he's doing, but he is Klay Thompson. I get both sides. I think he's being whiny, but at the same time, he's like, look, I'm a Hall of Famer, one of the best shooters of all time. Treat me that way. That's just the sad truth. You don't get treated that way. And look at guys like KD. KD tore his Achilles too and came back and was still playing like an MVP. D Rose dealt with injuries his entire career, and he dealt with people calling him glass knees. He dealt with people telling him he was done 4 different times on 4 different teams, and he's still playing in the league. Like, people have, like, Klay Thompson, you're not the first person that this has happened to.
Right.
Athletes get over stuff like this. They keep playing. They put their head down. They grind. They get back to that point, and then it's even sweeter to tell the haters to fuck off.
And
yeah, I want to make this last point is that,
Yeah.
He's one of the best of all time, don't get me wrong, but people better than him have also gotten this criticism. So to Dundy's
Absolutely.
point, he's not alone in getting this criticism to where you're a great player and the numbers are falling off as you get older. It's natural. But also, can we talk about his own teammate, Draymond Green? He's had a very visual drop-off to where
Yes.
people were calling him out on it last year. But guess what? He still played his hardest. He knew what his role was on the team, knew when he didn't play up to his par, and it came out with a championship. And, he's not one that's going to complain about it. He's going to still play hard, be the Draymond Green that they know and love that he can be, that's going to help them win, that, like I said, just help them win their 4th championship. So he's not alone on his own team and getting criticism for not performing up to, when you were younger. So, I mean, it's the constant whining for me that it's like, what are you doing? You're not alone in this, and you won't be the last person to get this criticism.
Right. And like I said, and this is the last thing I'm going to say about it, is I think Clay in the back of the head realizes Jordan Poole is going to eventually emerge over me as a better player, which I think he might be more talented right now. But I think the Warriors' best interest to put Poole in that starting lineup and maybe give Klay Thompson kind of a role similar to the Cavs have given Kevin Love, where you're a guy who can come off the bench, make some threes, do what you need to do on the court, but it's someone you don't have to rely on. Maybe take a little bit of pressure off it, because we know Klay Thompson is a better shooter than this. Regardless of injuries, he's a better shooter than 35% of the field, 32% from 3. It has to be mental a little bit at this point. And I think maybe the Warriors give him a few nights off, or maybe have him come off the bench a little bit, play where he's the main guy in the offense. Maybe not, not even the 1B to Curry anymore, but the third option after Curry and Wiggins in the starting lineup for who's really taking the shots. Maybe give him some time off the bench. Maybe give him some looks, with this second team guys for the most part. In my opinion, I know Klay Thompson, he's complaining a lot, but this has to be mental. A lot of drop off. I know, eventually you're not going to be able to shoot the lights out, one of the greatest shooters of all time that you normally were. But this type of drop off is not just he's getting old and mechanical. This has to be mental at some point. And with the Warriors struggling and Poole, all the hype about Poole in the playoffs last year and the end of last year, he's the next splash bro, and Klay's kind of falling off. I think it's just eating away at him mentally, and he's just expressing his frustration.
Yeah, it's tough to see. And Wiseman getting sent down to the G League too. Just the Warriors are in a weird spot right now. I think they'll bounce back. I think all 3 of us probably believe that.
I do too.
I expect to see them towards the top of the West when the season comes to a close. But it's definitely interesting. And Steve, the bench thing, I'm sure Steve Kerr's thought about that. I'm sure a lot of the guys in the Warriors believe that. But if you already have Klay Thompson this disgruntled, it's going to be tough to even ask.
You have to buy into it.
That. Yeah.
He'd have to buy into it, and that's what Kevin Love has done for the Cavs. He has bought into that role, and it's helped immensely off the bench, having a guy like that, a veteran leader.
Brogdon did it with the Celtics. Yes. He came here just admitting that he was the 6th man. He's like, look, I don't even want to start. And Brogdon's been hurt, the last couple of weeks, but when he played for us to start the season, he was just running the bench unit, and that's when he's going to get his. Klay could probably improve his numbers if he came off the bench.
And that's what I think too. And I know it's not a fair comparison because this guy doesn't want to come off the bench either. But Westbrook has played better since he's come off the bench for the Lakers. Sometimes it just helps mentally to come off the bench a little bit. And I think it would help Klay Thompson. And that doesn't mean if Klay Thompson comes off the bench and he starts 4-4 from 3 one night, that they're like, all right, you're only going to play a 15, 20-minute bench player role. No, he's still going to play the late game minutes. He'll still play the important minutes. They'll still want him in there. It's just maybe it just will help him, because it's one thing to see a shooting drop off like this, but I think part of it has to be mental with Klay, where he's just in his own head right now. He's struggling. He's hearing it from the fans. He's hearing it from all the media sources around him. And at the same guy, there's a guy behind him who also plays shooting guard, point guard, shooting guard, but guards are interchangeable at this point, who is eventually probably going to start over him. And it's probably frustrating him because he sees that the other splash bro, Mr. Steph Curry, is playing his best basketball still. And Klay's like, why can't that be me? You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just he has so much. Yeah, he's just hearing everything, and you just see Steph Curry playing like it's one of his best seasons once again, while Klay Thompson is going the complete opposite direction. It's definitely like eating away at him mentally.
Yeah, it's tough, man. Truth hurts. It's a difficult league, but we'll see. I'm sure Klay will bounce back. I don't expect those splits to be that bad all year, and if they are, we might have some trouble in Golden State. But we said we're going to talk trades. Let's just go through this list of rumors that I have up, and instead of breaking down every single one, you guys just tell me either the one you like the best or is most likely to happen. You guys can decide. I've heard. I don't remember hearing this many trade rumors to start a season. We're only a month in, and I'll just run down this list. The Bucks rumored to trade Grayson Allen. I saw a report the other day they were looking to get a defensive front court player in return. Lakers always in trade rumors. I mean, you guys pick, really. That's what I have written down, but it's the Miles Turner stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Westbrook's been rumored to get moved all season, all off season. Who knows? Heat possibly looking to trade Max Strus, which we've talked about the Heat a couple times this season already. They do not look like they are still poised for a championship run. Probably a move to be made there. Nets rumored to be shopping Joe Harris, which is interesting because he hasn't been shooting the ball well. They probably need to make a move in light of everything that's going on in Brooklyn. Indiana and Miles Turner, which is kind of tied into the Lakers stuff, but he could go elsewhere. It doesn't have to be the Lakers. And then this is the one I saw today. Spurs and Celtics rumored to be talking around Jakob Poeltl. I know in the offseason I saw the Spurs wanted 2 firsts for Poeltl. I don't think the Celtics would be willing to give that up, but it was a rumor I saw. So what do you guys think of those? I know that was a lot, or if you guys have any other trade rumors you've heard or think would work out, what do you guys like there?
I think Miles Turner has to get traded at some point, right? I think it's inevitable that Miles Turner and Buddy Hield are going to be traded at some point this season from the Pacers. And then Miles Turner, I brought this up on previous shows, I think there's a lot of good landing spots for him where he could help a team out. So I think Miles Turner is the one where I think Indiana knows that they're not going to be a team that's really going to win a lot of games this year or compete for the playoffs. But Indiana also knows that they have 2 superstar guards that they want to build a team around. We've seen it with Tyrese Halliburton, which I know this is a crazy, crazy claim to make. But is there a possibility that Tyrese Halliburton is the best player from his class, better than LaMelo and Anthony Edwards a couple years down the road? Is that a possibility? Because I think it could be.
I don't think that's that crazy.
I think it could be a possibility. And you have that, right? And then Ben Mathurin, who probably been the second best rookie right after Paolo Banchero, where the Pacers like, all right, we have these guys. They got to try to get assets and build around them for the future years, because this is not the year. 2-3 years down the road, maybe that's when you really want to try to put a team together. And I think Miles Turner is just the odd man out. He's someone who still has a lot left in the tank. I think he is a great shooting, great defensive big. And he could help out a lot of contending teams that are lacking that type of versatile big man. So I think Miles Turner is the one the Pacers will probably be shopping. And I think he's the one I think a team would probably go after the most out of this list here. I don't know. I feel like Indiana's in that spot where they're like, okay, the future might be bright, but we got to make some moves quick. And Miles Turner's not someone I don't think is going to be part of their future, but could really help a contending team this year. And I think sooner than later we'll see him get dealt.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree, and I hate to agree for the sake of having an argument, but I completely agree with everything you said, because with Miles Turner, he's young enough and still good enough to help a contending team. And I think when you find that right trade partner, I think that trade will help both teams, because you have Halliburton and Hield both averaging about 19 and 20 right now. Mm-hmm. And Hield is their 4th leading scorer, which sucks because you said like he's the odd man out. But the Pacers aren't really going anywhere. So they have these guards that they need to build the team around. And what better piece to trade than Turner, who's been in trade rumors for at least 2 years now.
He's only 26.
I know.
Exactly.
He can help a contending team would hold on to him for a few years too, right?
Absolutely.
It's not like
he should be entering his prime right now.
Yeah.
So if you get on a contending team, he's going to be a very valuable piece for a playoff contending team year in and year out right now. So I think for me, that's the trade right now, because I don't see a good landing spot for any of these other names right now. I don't see how they will get better or worse, with who they trade, depending on who they get back. But for me, it's Miles Turner because of the numerous teams that you could trade him to and his skill set. He can help so many teams right now in multiple ways and not just be one dimensional right now. So with him averaging about 18 points a game right now, he could come in and be an immediate factor for a team looking to make a run.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think as far as like season long, if we were to track all these I brought up, I would put my money on Miles Turner is going to be the one who gets moved. I personally think the most interesting is either the Nets and Joe Harris. That they're kind of trying to shop Joe Harris, because it's crazy to think how this guy's got lost in translation through this whole mess. Like, remember when it was just KD and Kyrie and they were like, they got shooters around him, like Joe Harris, one of the best shooters in the league. Since that point, he's been pretty bad at shooting.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how do you revive this guy's career? They have a mess all around them. Like, at least right now, it doesn't look like they're contending for anything. You might as well like trim the fat, try to get some assets back, because Harris isn't helping them win right now. And then I kind of think a similar way with Max Strus and the Heat. Like, the Heat look dysfunctional in some games this season. They look real bad. They're not getting, and I kind of said this on the podcast before. I don't like the amount that Hero, Robinson, and Strus all play in a game. I just think there's a lot of defensive liabilities when they play those guys a lot of minutes throughout a full game. So Strus, everyone likes shooters. So Harris and Strus, for two teams who are struggling, who should be better than they are, I wouldn't be surprised if either of those two shooters get moved. But that's probably going to do it for Happy Hour Hoops today. Thank you all for joining. Thanks for listening. Thank you, Steve and Amari. I'm Dunny. Follow Happy Hour Hoops. Follow all three of us on all socials, and enjoy your NBA and college basketball now that it's back.
Best time of the year, baby.
Yeah. We'll see you guys next time. Later, guys.